let's begin talk about the extraordinary channels. The extraordinary channels are conduits of yuan qi. This is an important thing to remember. Probably you know that, or most texts will say that that the extraordinary channels have to do with the flow of Jing. I don't agree. I don't think this is right. It's not written in the classics in this way anyway. Jing has to do with our personal potential. And of course, the extraordinary channels, as we will see, have to do with how the basic matrix of energy is built so that our personal potential can manifest itself and we can manifest life. But the functioning of Jing, the correct functioning of Jing within the extraordinary channels actually means how well are we able to not get in the way of the flow of yuan qi. Because yuan qi is what we call universal qi. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about any single person, it's not a personal qi. It is the energy of life. We'll talk about this a bit more later. This energy of life needs to flow through some kind of system in order to manifest a personal existence. This system at the very basic level is the system of the extraordinary channels. This is the first kind of system which is able to harness the flow of yuan qi and to direct the flow of yuan qi through the body. So extraordinary channels have very much to do with Jing, and that's why each and every one of us, our extraordinary channels are different, and there is definitely a personal aspect to the balance or imbalance we have within our extraordinary channels. But what is flowing within the extraordinary channels is not Jing, it's yuan qi. And this is important, it's an important difference. The extraordinary channels, they govern the creation of form and they govern the process of life, which means that, as we said, they are the basic matrix upon which life begins to become manifest. And they are always working in the background, and they're always, how do I say this? Making sure that things work properly, and actually, as we will see, the extraordinary channels are the system through which all the different functions of the body come together and we become a whole. So we'll talk about this more as we get into them. An important thing about why we have the extraordinary channels are there for us to enable the fulfillment of personal destiny. This is the basic Taoist idea of why are we here? What are we living for? We each have our own personal destiny. We each have our own contract with God, you can say. This is what we call our Ming. I don't have the radical here for Ming. But if you think of the point, Dumai 4, Ming Men, the gate of Ming, Dumai 4 is actually the point of the beginning of life. It's, if you go back to embryology, when the sperm enters into the egg, this point in which only one sperm is chosen from all the millions of sperm that are fighting to get into that egg, only one sperm is chosen and can enter into this. This choosing of the energy of your Jing, you could say, has to do with your Ming, with your contract with the existence. And this point from which the sperm enters into the egg, this is the point from which life begins, and this develops into being the point Ming Men. So extraordinary channels, they govern the creation of form, the process of life. They enable the fulfillment of our personal destiny. So again, this is connecting the non-personal universal yuan qi with the personal Jing qi, which has part of it coming from our hereditary energy from our parents, and part of it coming from our Jingshen, our karma, you could say, our point of beginning of life. Another thing that is important about the extraordinary channels, they have not only this function of enabling life and harmonizing throughout life, they also have this very important function within the immune system. And this function is to be able to contain chronic pathological processes that the immune system has not been able to deal with otherwise. So if we have a disease coming in through the sinews and through the low and through the divergent, and we're not able to deal with it, and we're not able to transform this energy and come back to a state of health, at some point the body will say, okay, I give up, I'm not able to recover from this disease, but in order for the disease not to kill me or not to wreak havoc in everything in the body, I'm going to contain it somewhere. And this is at the immune system level, this is what the extraordinary channels can do. They can contain these chronic illnesses, and then the person does not die and the person recovers somewhat, but actually develops what we call this kind of chronic disease. Okay, and we'll call this a chronic autoimmune disease in order to stay with the same kind of terminology. As we will see, the extraordinary channels, they have given trajectories, but the trajectories are very general. You will see that the extraordinary channels, they go in many different directions and they have many different connections, and this is actually the secret to understanding how we can access them and treat them at this level of immunity. And all of the points of the extraordinary channels actually represent the meeting of the different channels of the body with Yuan Qi. So we have 8 extraordinary channels. For the Dumai and the Renmai, we have their own trajectory, they have their own points. But all the other 6 extraordinary channels, all of their points are actually points of the regular channels. And these points are very important to know and very important to understand, because these are the meeting points of the Jinglu, of the meridian system, with Yuan Qi. So as you will see, when we want to diagnose and treat problems of the extraordinary channels, most of our work is done in understanding which of these points upon the trajectories of the channels need to be treated. This is not the opening points, the activation points. Okay, we'll talk of small intestine 3, lung 7, all of these. This comes much later in Chinese medicine. This actually comes from 16th century. Up until the 16th century, there were no activation points. There was only the points of the trajectories. So we'll be talking about that, and we will be talking about what is the importance of the activation points and when is it proper to use activation points with points of the extraordinary channels, and when is it better not to use activation points and to treat only the points of the trajectories. And last thing I want to say in this introduction right now is, as we said, because they have very general descriptions and trajectories, we will see that the extraordinary channels, they're everywhere. Okay? At the cellular level, every cell in our body, you could say, has within it this matrix that enables life. So they're everywhere and they affect everything. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be going through each one of the channels, and I will give you a short overview so we have some kind of common basis for understanding. And then in the second part of the lecture, we'll be talking specifically about Crohn's disease and treatment protocols and points and so on and so on.